Welcome back to week 4 of Seeking Safety, our Ventral Vagus Nerve Stimulation series. This has been such a great series, and today we're actually going to be starting lying down, and preferably lying down on our backs. However, if that does not feel safe to you, you might explore using some props to help you feel a bit more safe and supported. So what that looks like is you could have a blanket or a towel nearby, and you might choose to lie down on your back. You might decide to keep your feet planted on the floor, perhaps taking them out wide toward the left and right side of your mat, and maybe allowing the knees to fall inward toward one another. So the feet are wide and the knees can come in toward one another, and that allows the hip flexor muscles to soften and not have to do so much work. So this is one option. Another option is to lay with your legs just extended as is. Maybe if your lower back is feeling kind of tight or tense, you might put a bolster or a rolled up blanket underneath your knees to kind of relieve some of that pressure on your lower back. And you might choose one of those options and then take a blanket and place it on top of your abdomen and pelvis area, or even your heart space as well. Anywhere that you feel it would be supportive to you. So you decide, and if lying on your back still does not feel safe to you, you don't have to. So you could always choose to stay seated, and you can join us from a seated shape, anything that allows you to feel supported. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and set up. And take a moment to clear the space around you. Also, you'll need enough room above head to reach your arms up above. So make sure that you have some space and into a T. So you'll need this whole space up above you, arms extended up overhead, and into a T at the sides. And once you arrive, I invite you to scan through your body, noticing where your body meets the floor. Noticing every area that your body is touching, whatever is supporting you. You might choose to take your eyes closed or leave them open. And you might decide to leave your hands either resting at your sides or maybe placing the hands over your abdomen. Perhaps beginning to shift your awareness into your breath. Watching the natural rhythm move in and out like a wave. And you might choose to stay right here, just simply breathing. Or if you'd like to join me for the humming breath, you might begin that at any time. And we'll be doing this for a little bit longer than what we have in the past. But as always, you can decide the length of time that is appropriate for you. So you might start by inhaling through the nose. And as you exhale, allowing a soft hum to vibrate your throat and chest. Allowing your breaths to be soft and sweet. Knowing that you don't have to force your breath to be anything that it isn't. Continuing on in your own way, at your own pace. Noticing the vibrations, possibly even in your face, your jaw, your throat, your chest. With each exhale, allowing the hum to begin to soften and warm your body. We'll finish up with 3 more humming breaths or 3 more natural breaths. Finishing up in your own way, in your own timing. Allowing each muscle to soften as much as it feels safe to do so. And then after your 3rd humming breath or natural breath, I welcome you to simply observe how you feel in this moment. And is it different? Are there any differences compared to when we began just a few minutes ago? I invite you to connect with this community intention for this session, which is I love my body. And if that does not feel true to you today, you might explore the intention, I am learning to love my body. And if neither of those intentions feel welcome to you today, you might create an intention for yourself that does. So taking 1 to 2 breaths here and breathing into the intention of your choice. Letting it settle in as we continue to journey inward. You might begin to add some movement back into your body as you see fit. Maybe moving the toes or taking a few wrist rolls. And if you're ready for movement, we'll begin to inhale and reach your arms straight up overhead and back to the floor behind you. Exhale, you might begin to bend your elbows, keeping them close to the floor, maybe hovering them or resting them on the floor. Inhale the arms out to a T, reaching them out. And exhale, you could wrap your arms around you, across your chest in a hug. And I welcome you to pause here for 1 breath. You could choose to stay here longer, or option to inhale, uncross your arms and sweep your arms right back up overhead, above head. Exhale, we'll repeat these motions, bending the elbows, drawing them down toward the ribs, like you're holding 2 platters. Inhale the arms out into a T, reaching the fingertips away from you. Exhale, you could change the cross of your arms and wrap yourself in a hug. Pausing for 1 breath. I welcome you to take that same sequence with me for another round on each side. So if you're ready, you could unravel the arms and inhale, sweep them up overhead. Exhale to draw the elbows down toward the ears, the ribs. Inhale, maybe your arms reach out to a T. Exhale, if you're ready, you could cross the arms, changing the cross, reaching for a hug around your own body. 1 breath. In your own timing. Inhale for our last one, sweeping the arms up overhead. Exhale to drop the elbows, open up as much as it feels welcome to do so. Inhale the arms out into a T. Exhale, change the cross of the arms 1 last time. Coming into a hug. And this time, I welcome you to pause here for 3 breaths. Tuning in to your body. Noticing that you are holding yourself right now. You are holding yourself in this moment. And with your next inhale, if you're ready to release, or you can stay here as long as you desire to. You could begin to inhale the arms up and overhead and rest them on the floor right above you. If you have a blanket or a bolster beneath your knees, you might explore moving that to the side so that you could lay flat on your back. And if you are in a seated shape, you could stay in the seated shape. Pausing here wherever you're at. And if you are lying with your back on the floor, you could begin to take your right foot and send it over to the right side of your mat. It might even go off of your mat, and that's okay too. And then with your left foot, you could either place the left foot right next to the right, or if it feels a bit more supportive to have your left foot cross over your right, that's also an option. And then right here, you might choose to take the right hand and hold on to your left wrist, or if that doesn't feel welcome, you could just hook your thumbs together right above your head. And in your own timing, I'll meet you with an inhale. And with an exhale, you could begin to explore drawing your arms and your upper body toward the right so that you end up in this banana shape. So the feet and the legs are bowing out to the right, and so are the arms. And then once you get there, you might notice if you're still really striving to reach toward the right. And if so, I welcome you to just soften a little bit. Maybe we don't have to try so hard. Even if you lose some of the shape when you soften, that's okay. Your body knows exactly where to go. And for the next 4 breaths or so, perhaps you notice your left ribs. And if you are in a seated shape, you'll just simply take your right hand to the floor and inhale the left arm up overhead, reaching it over to the right. So you're still in a lateral stretch with us. Wherever you're at, what does it feel like to breathe in and out of the left side of your body as it gently opens up? Last breath here, or whenever you decide it's your last breath. If you are lying on the floor and you are ready to leave this shape, you could start with the top half of your body first, coming back to center, followed by the bottom half of your body. If you are in a seated shape, you'll simply come back to center and release your arms down. And as always, we'll pause in the center. We'll pause to notice. What do you feel on the left side of your body? And what do you feel on the right side? And if you're ready for the next side, if you are lying down, you could take the left foot over to the left side of your mat, followed by the right. Whether your feet are simply right next to each other, or you could cross the right ankle on top. You might take the left hand and hold onto your right wrist, or you might simply hook your thumbs together. And we'll breathe in. And with an exhale, or when you see fit, you could begin to draw yourself, the top part of your body, over toward the left, like you're pulling your right arm over toward the left. If you are in a seated shape, you'll plant your left hand on the floor and draw the right arm up overhead and stretch it over to the left. So wherever you're at, finding a little bit of ease here if it feels safe for your body. And you might take 4 more breaths, perhaps breathing directly into the right ribs, the right lung, noticing the opening that is taking place here. Last breath. In your own timing, you could start with the top half of your body and come back to center, and then the bottom half. And if your arms are still overhead, you might choose to release them down to your sides, or you could choose to leave them up overhead for longer if that feels welcome. One breath in between. I am learning to love my body. Option to plant the feet on the floor. And if you are in a seated shape, you might join us on the floor for this next shape. So with our feet planted on the floor, option here to draw the knees in toward the chest. And you might place your hands over the tops of the knees, or you could even place them behind the knees. Or you might just float them in toward the chest. And it might feel welcome to rock from left to right. We'll be here for a few breaths. You could always choose stillness if that's preferable. I'm learning to love my body. This body that has carried me for my whole life, my whole story, everything that has occurred. Your body has been there, keeping you safe, never quitting on you. If you are still rocking, you could come back to center if you are ready to. And planting the feet on the floor again, this time hip distance apart. And we'll begin to explore a dynamic bridge shape. And so this bridge shape is really opening for the front of our body, from our hip flexors all the way through up into our chest. And that's what we're focusing on today. So we'll be taking a variety of shapes that focus on opening up the front body, which, as we know, is where the ventral vagus nerve runs. From here to here, give or take. Or I guess from here to here, our face, above our diaphragm. So if you prefer to have a blanket over you during this shape, and I'll show you first, please grab a blanket or a towel if that is going to allow you to feel a bit more secure. And as always, if a shape does not feel welcome or safe to your body, you don't have to force yourself to do it. You can take any other shape that does feel welcome to you. So with our feet planted hip distance apart and our hands resting down at our sides, and our gaze is straight up at the ceiling. And this is really important because we need to protect our neck. So when we are lifting the hips in this bridge shape, it's really important not to turn your neck from side to side or to even look up like behind you. If you can, try to keep your gaze directly up toward the ceiling or just up in general so that your nose continues to point up. And so check in with your neck at the moment right now and notice if your chin is opening up, if your gaze is kind of going a little bit back. And just as we've done in all of the sessions leading up to this one, can you draw the back of your head up so that you feel a slight tuck in your chin. This is going to help protect our neck. Okay. And you could watch me first, or if you'd like to join me at the same time, that's also an option. And I'm going to start with my breath, just breathing in and out. And with the next inhale, you might begin to press into your feet and peel your lowest part of the spine up off of the floor. So it's like you're tucking your tailbone and peeling it off like a sticker. And then traveling up one vertebrae at a time until you get to the top and you can feel the weight in your shoulders. And that's where we'll pause. And then allowing your exhale, or whenever you're ready, to peel the spine right back down, starting from the top and working your way down one vertebrae at a time, allowing the tailbone to come down last. So this is option one. It's kind of a wave-like motion as we use our breath to press the feet into the floor and peel the spine up, and then peel it right back down. A second option is more of a lumbar lift. So you could simply press your feet into the floor and lift on an inhale and an exhale to lower. Both options are wonderful choices. There is not one that is better than another. It's simply what feels welcome in your body. And as we're here for the next 4 or 5 breaths, so 4 or 5 inhales and exhales, I welcome you to explore moving at the pace of your breath. So that looks like allowing your breath to begin your movement and end your movement. And you can take your time with your breath. This is your practice. This is your time. You set the pace here. We'll start to finish up here with the last 1 or 2 movements. Finding completion wherever you are. Allowing your whole spine to rest on the mat. And it might feel that you really want to like pull the knees in toward the chest, but please avoid doing that. And that's because we just opened up our spine and we moved all of our discs in one direction. And so we want to give them a moment to come back to neutral. And so by laying here for just a few breaths without curling our spine in the opposite direction, we're helping the discs have a moment to just come back to center, if you will. So just 1 or 2 more breaths here. Noticing how your back body feels. Noticing how your front body feels. And if you are lying on your back, you can decide which side you're going to turn on. So we're going to move into the fetal shape, fetal position. And if you want to lie on your left side, you could reach your left arm up overhead. Or if it's your right side, you could reach your right arm up overhead. And then just simply roll on over to that side, whichever one you prefer. Pausing here. How are you feeling in your body? And when you're ready to come back up, you might begin to shift yourself up and option to meet me in a child's pose of your choice. So you might take the knees as wide as the mat, or you might take them a bit more narrow. The choice is yours. Toes can touch right back behind you. And you might decide to send the hips back toward the heels. They don't have to touch the heels, but if they do, that's okay too. You could walk your hands forward if you like, resting your forehead on the floor, or you could always keep the upper half of your body lifted if you prefer to keep your gaze open. And as always, you can use a blanket to surround the lower half of your body, like so, providing a little bit more coverage and protection. An option to stay here for 2 more breaths in whatever version of this shape that you are in. I honor your choice. I honor and trust the fact that you know your body best, better than I could ever know it or anyone else could ever know it. Last breath here. And if you'd like to stay here in child's pose, you can stay here as long as you like. There's no rush. And if you're ready to start shifting forward into a different shape, then you might begin to come into a tabletop. And if you have the blanket around you, you can remove it or you can leave it. I'm going to leave it. So 3 choices here. Child's pose, I guess 4 choices. Tabletop is also a choice. And puppy shape, as we've experienced before. And that option is to find some engagement in your core, like half amount, not full engagement. We just need a little bit to support our lower back. And then puppy shape with that engagement would walk your hands forward as you begin to lower your heart toward the floor. The chest doesn't have to touch the floor, and neither does the forehead. But if the forehead touches the floor, if you'd like to rest it there, you absolutely can. And last option is to take a down dog. So if you would like down dog, you could tuck your toes and maybe breathe in and reach the hips up towards the sky. I'm keeping my knees bent to start because it's preferable to me, and then lowering one heel down at a time. Kind of pedaling out my feet. And again, you can leave the blanket or you can remove it. You choose. It just provides a little layer of protection. It can help us to feel a bit more secure. Wherever you're at, you can leave at any time, you can change your mind at any time, or you can continue being where you are. Two more breaths in whatever expression you choose for yourself. After your second breath, I'll meet you back in a tabletop shape. I'm going to remove my blanket so you can see what I'm doing for this next shape. So from our tabletop, we'll begin to, I'm going to turn this way so you can see what I'm doing. From our tabletop, you could start with the right leg and plant your right foot on the floor right beside you, or out to the right. And the toes can face outward toward the right. And then you could find your way up so that you're kneeling on your left knee and your right foot is on the floor. And the toes can point away from you. If this feels like a really big opening here in the right leg, you could always turn your toes a little bit diagonal and notice if that creates some space. Okay. So from here, this is called gate pose. I welcome you to start exploring the shape and how it feels in your body. So it might feel welcome to kind of rock a little bit, maybe left to right, and you could explore rocking really deep or maybe just a little bit. You choose. Noticing the inside of your right quad, your right thigh. And your hands, you could either place one on your left leg and one on your right, perhaps feeling the muscles move underneath your palms. Or you might choose to bring them to heart center. So whatever you decide, I welcome you to be here exploring for the next 2 or 3 breaths. You could also explore in stillness. You don't have to move if you don't want to. And if you are moving, you might decide to come back into stillness and just pause here. Option to roll the shoulders down the back and extend the arms out into a T. Palms can face the floor, and maybe you turn your gaze to the right. This shape might remind you of a warrior two. It's because it is. It's a version of warrior two. Inhaling here and exhaling in your own timing. Noticing the opening that is taking place across the chest and across the right leg. Option to inhale and reach your arms up overhead. Maybe even lengthen through the spine, reaching up, and exhale right back down. Arms to a T, gazing out to the right, or you might choose to leave your hands at heart center if it doesn't feel welcome to have your arms extended. One more just like that if you'd like to. Lengthening and exhale. You can stay here as long as you like, or if you're ready to come back into a tabletop shape, I'll meet you there. And before we move to the other side, we'll explore neutralizing our spine in between. So finding a child's pose of your choice. Whichever child's pose feels best to you. I welcome you to find your way there now. Taking a breath out with your next exhale. And with your inhale, you could begin to shift back forward into your tabletop. And with an exhale, I'm moving my knees back a little bit and lowering down onto the stomach. This is a modified vinyasa. Option to stay here or inhale and press into your hands, lifting your heart space for a cobra. And you can decide how much you want to come up. So you might come up just a little bit, or maybe halfway, or maybe a lot, whatever that feels like to your body. Inhale, pressing into your hands and shifting your hips back and coming back into the child's pose of your choice. One breath in between. Staying here as long as you desire to. Or if you're ready for movement, inhaling back into your tabletop. We'll take the other side. Left side this time, so your left foot can come out. And you could lift up so that you are leaning on or kneeling on your right knee. Left leg is out toward the left. Toes can point out toward the left, or if this feels maybe like there's not a lot of space just yet, you can always point your knee and your toes diagonal a little bit. And about 4 breaths here, finding this shape in your body, whether you are taking movement or not. So you could choose to sway, leaning into your knee and leaning out of it, or you could choose to just observe in stillness. Last breath. And after your exhale, perhaps you come to stillness. Option to bring your hands to heart center, or option to roll the shoulders down the back, extend the arms out into a T, and then option to gaze over your left hand. You can change your mind at any time. So if you try something here, decide that it's not enjoyable, you can always try something else. Noticing the engagement of your right quad as it holds you up, and the opening of your left quad. Bringing to mind your intention here for these last 1 or 2 breaths. I am learning to love my body. Option to inhale and reach the arms up overhead. Exhaling out. Optional movement, last one. Inhaling up and lengthening. And exhaling out. When you're ready to leave this shape, you could plant your hands on the floor and I'll meet back in a tabletop. Perhaps you find your choice of child's pose. And I welcome you to join me in moving through our modified Vinyasa one more time. So starting in child's pose, taking 1 breath in and out. And if you're ready, you could inhale, shift yourself forward into a tabletop. Maybe you move your knees back just a little bit. Exhale to lower down onto your belly. An option to inhale and find a cobra. So you could press into your hands, lift your heart, and maybe explore rolling the shoulders back as your gaze stays forward. You decide how much you come up. And exhale, sending yourself back when you're ready into your child's pose. We'll pause here for 3 breaths. Last one. repeating either internally or out loud your intention for this practice, allowing it to soak in. And beginning to lift your head if you're ready to leave this child's pose and shift yourself forward. And coming into a seat. So our last shape, aside from our rest shape, is called deer pose. And for this one, I encourage you to grab a blanket or a towel. That would be very helpful. And with the blanket on your right side by your right hip, we'll go ahead, or sorry, actually, on the left side, other side. So on the left side, with your feet nice and wide, planted right in front of you, and your blanket underneath your left hip. So it's not under both of your glutes, it's underneath your left glute, your left hip. And you can send your right leg back out into the side and your left leg right in front of you. So the right edge of your foot can rest on the floor, the whole right edge of your right leg. And for the front leg, the left edge of your foot is resting on the floor. And if this feels like, ooh, this is a lot in my right hip, totally understandable. You can take your blanket and either fold it again to create a little bit more space, or add a second blanket on top of your first. So we're creating a little bit of space to reduce the rotation in your hip. And if you're sitting on the blanket and you would like more of a stretch or more sensation in your right hip, you can just remove the blanket, and it might be what you're looking for. So adjust your props as needed. And from here, our deer pose, you could stay right here. This is an option. Or if you are curious to add on to this, you might begin to inhale and reach your arms up overhead, and exhale over to the right, so over to the leg that is crossed back. Reaching your left arm over, and perhaps you start with your gaze looking down at your right hand. Breathing in and out. Inhale, you could turn your head to center, looking straight ahead, taking one breath in and out. And then inhale, you might choose to turn your head up to look at your left arm, breathing in and out. And with your next inhale, you could turn your head all the way back down to look at your right hand and lengthen up to find center. You could use your right hand to guide your right leg out, remove the blanket, and option to extend your legs in front of you. Just taking a moment before we do the other side, noticing any changes between your left and your right leg, the left and right hip. And then moving the blanket to the right side, we could plant our feet on the floor if you're ready for the next side. And if the blanket was helpful on the previous side, it might be helpful on this side. So the blanket would be scooched up underneath your right glute, your right hip, and your left leg could go back out behind you with your right leg in front of you. And one side might feel way tighter than the other. So for example, this side in my body feels much tighter. So it's normal, it's to be expected. And if you need more length, you could use another blanket or a towel. But wherever you're at, I welcome you to take a moment and find center here. You could stay here, or if you'd like, you could inhale and reach the arms up overhead. And exhale, left hand can come down to the floor, reaching the right over. And you could start with your with your gaze down at your left hand. And if you'd like to take the movements with us, with the that stimulate our vagus nerve, you could inhale and exhale here. And then inhale and turn your gaze to center, taking one breath in and out. And then with your next breath in, turning your gaze to look up toward your right arm, one breath here. And when you are complete, you could turn your gaze all the way back down to look at your left hand and find your way up to center, releasing this shape when you are ready to. You can remove your blanket if you want. And just take a breath, observing how you feel. Taking any organic movements here that feel relieving to your body after taking that very deep internal hip rotation. And I welcome you to move to your final rest shape. So that could look like staying seated if you prefer. That could look like lying on your back, on your belly, child's pose. You could rest your legs on a chair or a couch or a coffee table, anything that's next to you. So setting up in a shape that's going to allow you to feel totally at rest. You can also lay a blanket over you. I'm going to place my bolster underneath my knees to support my lower back. And a blanket over my pelvis and my stomach. So you decide what feels right to you. Giving yourself ample time and space to settle in. Scanning through your body and noticing, is there any area that could feel just 5% more comfortable? And if so, can you give yourself permission to adjust wherever you need to in order to have that 5% more support? I would like to guide you through a short meditation. So if you'd like to join me, I welcome you to follow along in your mind's eye. And if this does not feel supportive to you, you could feel free to just allow yourself to rest. I invite you to bring to mind somebody, just one person or pet that you love dearly. Bring them to the front of your mind. Noticing who you have chosen, whether it is someone that is still with us today or maybe someone that has passed on, or perhaps a pet. And I welcome you to think about this person standing in front of you, or maybe sitting with you. And maybe you make contact of some form, such as holding hands or hugging, or maybe you just sit or stand and regard one another. Gazing at one another. And as you look at this person, as you make contact with this person or pet, I welcome you to allow everything that you love about this person to come to the surface of your body. All of the gratitude that you have for this being, all of the love and affection and appreciation for who they are. For their role in your life, for their place in your life. Maybe they have loved you well, cared for you, inspired you, encouraged you. Maybe they have simply just appreciated you. Perhaps it's not for anything that they've done, but for just who they are as a being. Allowing all of this love and appreciation to come up. Maybe even expressing gratitude to them. And soaking up this feeling. So noticing this feeling that you are experiencing. And where you might be feeling the sensation in your body. Perhaps in your chest, your heart space. Perhaps your arms or your face, or maybe it's a full body sensation. And what does that sensation feel like? Maybe it feels warm or tingly, maybe bubbly. Maybe it feels solid and sure. What kind of emotions does it evoke in you? Perhaps a sense of protection and safety, or maybe belonging and acceptance, or maybe something else. Soaking up whatever is present for you in this moment. And now, just as you regarded this being that you love so much, and it brought up feelings of maybe affection or gratitude or joy, I now invite you to imagine that this person is sending to you the exact same feelings, and now you are receiving it. They are regarding you with the same love and affection, the same gratitude, the same care as they gaze at you and hold nothing but love in their hearts for you, and they send it to you just as you sent it to them. Noticing how this feels to receive. And dwelling here for a few more breaths, receiving and basking in this loving kindness. Sometimes we learn how to love ourselves by others loving us first. And as we begin to ease our way out of this meditation, out of this rest time, I welcome you to repeat to yourself internally or out loud, I am learning to love my body. I am learning to love myself. Perhaps you take one cleansing breath in and out with me. And you might choose to stay here as long as you like, or if you are ready to add some movement in, I'll meet you in a seated shape. Option to bring your hands to heart center. One more breath in and out if you'd like at your own pace. I hope that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you.